that I want to touch on is there's a lot of myths associated with the work that you're doing, or for that matter, the life of an athlete. People see the results, people see the end, right? They don't see the entirety of the process. They don't see the 10 years, the 15 years, everything that you've been doing to get to this point. Uh, how has that journey been? Because the myth is oh, well, it's an uphill battle. Or the myth is, well, um, maybe it's not that difficult. Oh, well, you just have good genetics, right? Good genes, right?
Mhm.
You just have a good team. Oh, you just have plenty of time to get all that done. Like, how do we zoom out from all that and look at over that time that you've been doing this? There must have been ups and downs, just like in everything else, but obviously trending up. Right? It's up and down, but the trend is upwards. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you can pinpoint looking back? Say these are these were the myths, right? Of what people think this is like. This is what actually was like for me. Your personal experience. And this is what I had to do to overcome that, which is what the resilience aspect of the conversation comes in. Like, how do you to do something like this for that long and hopefully longer? There's got to be an element of resolve and will and grit, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so there's two things that come to mind immediately. So one is going to be like my start in grad school and kind of how people view athletics when you're in a chemistry program. So um, when I first got into chemistry, and I think I was in my first year, um, people were talking smack, and one of these girls said like, oh, how can she look like that and be good at chemistry? She must have done something else to get in here. And that just goes to show like people aren't used to people like sorry people aren't used to prioritizing fitness alongside academia, which is one of my gripes with grad school. So a lot of times people would see me go out of lab like in the middle of the day, just to go like take a 2 hour break to go to the gym. And I would be like the lazy grad student, like, oh, she's not serious about her experiments. She's just going to the gym in the middle of the day. And people didn't really take me very seriously in chemistry at the beginning of my journey. But the important thing was to just like stick to my guns, not listen to them, and do my schedule in my own way. Because a lot of times in grad school, people will come into the program, they'll be super excited to start, and you'll notice like several years go by and they're kind of like angry and, just like grumpy and sad and depressed because they didn't do a good job like prioritizing their life outside of the lab. um, their life became the lab. They didn't prioritize any hobbies, they didn't take a lot of time with loved ones, they didn't prioritize their health above all. For me, going to the gym was my escape from like the lab. It helped me like maintain my mental sanity. A lot of people will ask like, how did you take time to go to the gym during grad school? And I was like, how do you take time not to go to the gym? Like, are you okay? Because it's just like that
Yeah.
release and that like reset throughout the day.
Well, let's zoom in there for a moment because I think that just within that you just mentioned, there is yet another myth, right? How much time do you actually need at the gym to get the results that you seek for the particular program you're on? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the reason why people were having this kind of reaction towards what you were doing is because there may be a stigma or a myth that in order to obtain results and look the way you do, you have to spend endless hours at the gym.
Hmm.
And more we see that that's not the case. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. To give you some perspective, right now, I only currently train 4 days a week for about an hour a session. And that's like I'm a national level bodybuilder and soon to be national level power lifter. So that's all the time that I spend in the gym. And people have this idea that you have to be in the gym grinding 6 days a week for 2 hour sessions to look amazing. But if you're smart with your programming, like if your programming is structured, you're running progressions, you're training through full range of motion, getting that tension in, training to the intensity that you need to be close enough to failure, you would be surprised. It only takes 3 to 5 exercises a session, 4 days a week to really just get good results. And this is something I preach with my clients all the time. Like, we have people who come in, they're nurses, they're students. They don't have time to spend 6 hours or 6 days a week in the gym. You know, they have lives, they have loved ones, they have kids that they have to take care of. So getting people to grasp this concept of it doesn't take as much time as you think is like a large goal of what we do at She Lives Academy.
Do you think it makes a difference when you say it doesn't take as much time as you think? Is that statement more true when you're in a maintenance program than if you're in a growth program, or it doesn't matter either way?
Yeah, so obviously there are levels, and I'll just use bodybuilding for this example. So, I mean, if you're growing or maintaining, it does, I would say, take a lot less effort from like life stress kind of side of things because you're only really paying attention to the work you're doing in the gym. So, if you spend 1 hour a session 4 days a week, that's enough to maintain and grow your physique. And if you're eating good, sleeping good, making sure your stress is managed, you can definitely make progress there. Now, the flip side of things is obviously when I'm in a bodybuilding prep and I am leaning down into stage day, maybe I'm like 12 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out. And the closer you get into the show, you're doing more cardio, you're eating a lot less food. So you don't have a lot of energy. And that, of course, like affects other things. But I would say the closer you get to show, obviously, I'm not going to be spending just 1 hour a session 4 days a week. That's when it does get a little bit more time consuming. But again, it's only for short periods of time when I am close to like the stage.
Okay, let's talk about some of the setbacks. What kind of setbacks have you had? I mean, have you experienced injuries, along the way, which are, of course, are very common. And how do you deal with those?
Yeah, so I mean, I've definitely experienced a few injuries. I've suffered with patellofemoral syndrome in my knee, which has limited the volume that I can do with a lot of squatting. I've also I've had a wrist injury this year with front squatting, which has been a bummer, but that didn't really affect things too bad. The most important thing with injuries is that it's not the end of the world when you get an injury. You can do the best that you can to work around the pain. So like obviously don't do anything in the gym that hurts, and just so you can get your body enough time to recover and make sure you get PT. Make sure you're doing your PT even when it doesn't hurt. So it is a setback, but it's not forever.
Interesting. So let me ask you a different question. How you've been doing this for a while now. What is your PhD on?
I have my PhD in materials chemistry.
Materials chemistry. So you understand, chemistry very well. And at the end of the day, that's what runs our body, right? We're all just a big, chemical machine. What are some of the things that you've learned along the way that now looking back, you look at it and see, I really wasn't doing that the right way.
Hmm.
That now that you've had, more experience, a bigger group, a bigger support group, the coaches, and uh, the rest of the community, because at least from the outside looking in, it looks like a community uh, of people who are all going in this journey that you've embarked on. Looking back, how do you can you pinpoint to things like, that was not a good way to exercise, or that was not a good way to go about my routine?
Yeah, definitely. So when I did my first prep, obviously I didn't know a lot about the sport or the correct things to go about it. And I just went with the first coach that I ever had. And granted, she did teach me a lot about the sport, but there is a lot of things that I would change now looking into it. So to give some examples, my first prep, I ran a meal plan from 20 weeks out all the way into show day. And that meal plan was super restrictive because I didn't know any better. I was just eating like chicken and broccoli for 6 meals a day because this is what the bodybuilders do. You know, that's how they get their results. I was doing like insane amounts of cardio. I was in the gym 6 days a week doing like 10 exercises a session, supersets out the wazoo. So it was just very much this mindset of work hard and work even harder to get those results. But now, like my perspective on at least prepping for shows has changed like so drastically. Now I count macros. Now I realize that you don't have to eat in a huge deficit to get super shredded. Like more so, it's better if you do things gradually. So to give some number examples, last prep, I finished my growing phase maintaining around 2,400 calories. And to move into deficit, we then moved to like 2,100 calories. Sat a few weeks there until I lost some weight and then moved again to like 1,900 calories. And we stayed at 1,900 calories for like maybe 8 straight weeks and just until my body stopped responding to that deficit and then we dropped again. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, one day you're eating 2,400 calories and then, oh, you're on prep. Now you eat 800 calories. It's very gradual and stepwise. And you can also have a lot of variation when it comes to your food. You don't have to be on this strict, rigid meal plan eating chicken and broccoli for 6 meals a day. Nobody's supposed to eat chicken and broccoli for 6 meals a day. So just like knowing that it's okay to have a piece of cake here and there on prep as long as it fits your macros. That is such a game changer, especially when you're working in that work-life balance. Like if you want to go on date night and enjoy some sushi with your significant other, you can totally do that. And you can still make progress towards your goals. And so learning that aspect has just been like a world of difference. It's been like way more um, sustainable and better to balance everything.